Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. How's everybody doing tonight? We're set back and we're setting the time machine back to 1983. We've been popping there for the 40th anniversary for 4 albums. 3 of these were picked by Tony Dio. This is his baby, and I picked one too. So the first one is something I picked. Balls to the Walls, the 5th studio album by German heavy metal band Accept. European label Lark Records released this album in December of '83. So this is kind of an '83, but it was in Europe and Germany, but in the United States it wasn't released until January '84. So maybe we're cheating a little bit in the U.S. show, but it's not to compete with the band's then current album Restless and Wild, which is arrived in the U.S. in early '83. So we could have had Restless and Wild on tonight too, but I guess this is our homework. So is Accept's only album to attain gold certification in the U.S. and the album's title track became Accept's signature tune and remains a metal anthem and a trademark in the genre. I can't even talk today. I was horrible on Monday night. Ralph just told me about how he's picking songs that were supposed to be closers. They were number 7 out of 9, and
you were not.
I'm slipping a little bit, but here I am. The next album is Flick OfThe Switch, the 8th studio album by Australian hard rock band AC/DC. The album was deemed a commercial disappointment after it failed to match the sales figures of the band's 2 previous releases, Back in Black and For Those About to Rock. Release represented the beginning of the band's commercial decline. Despite this, opinions of Flick OfThe Switch have been quite positive in the years since the release. The album has also been mentioned as one of the best releases of '83. The 3rd AC/DC album that featured lead vocalist Brian Johnson. The album is also the last to feature Phil Rudd before its return to Ballbreaker '95. And next, Fastway is the debut studio album by British heavy metal band Fastway, released in April of '83. Founding member Pete Way, ex-bass player with UFO, did not play on the album because by the time the recording sessions began, Way had left the band. He had soon reformed another band, Wasted. The bass guitar parts on the album were actually played by Raffaello Benitez. He worked on the studio where the album was recorded when Pete Way, who was meant to be there, didn't show up that day. He was offered to play bass for the album. He came up with the bass lines and remains uncredited for the album. Last but not least, Thunder and Lightning is the 12th and final studio album by Irish hard rock legends Thin Lizzy. Released on March 4th of '83, guitarist John Sykes was hired to replace Snowy White after 1991's Renegade. Sykes helped to provide heavier sound and guitar tone that Thin Lizzy had used on previous albums. However, the bulk of the sound writing, except for Cold Sweat, was completed before he joined the band. Keyboard player Darren Waltkin also offered a stronger musical influence to Thin Lizzy's final studio album, co-writing many of the tracks, including Someday She's Going to Hit Back and the final single, The Sun Goes Down. A farewell tour followed the album's release, followed by the live album Life. The group's co-founder and frontman bass player Phil Lynott died in 1986. So there's our 4 albums we're going to be chatting on tonight. Of course, 3 of them were picked by Tony Dio, as I mentioned before. And we're going to go around to each one of the guests tonight, and we will do an order. I guess if you're at the, you're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. The one that's your favorite. I think this is a little tough because all these albums, I'll tell you the truth, I hadn't listened to a lot of these albums in many years from top to bottom. I don't know if a lot of other people here also. I mean, I've heard some of the singles, of course, Balls to the Wall you hear every time you go to a metal club. So, some of the other songs, some of the other albums weren't quite as popular, I'd say. And just to hear the whole things, it was nice to revisit some. Maybe one it wasn't really nice to revisit because I didn't care for it, but we'll find out when I do my picks. So tonight's guests, we got the mighty Tony Dio, we got Count Ralphus, we got Craig Kaminsky. I think he's a regular on this channel now. Welcome. Oh, we got Obi in the center square. We got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. We got Denny Barth from Aggression, and we have Stephen Levin from Mechanical Menace, and of course, longtime Rock Fantasy employee and friend. And here we go. I guess we will start off with you, Tony Dio, since you picked it, and then we'll go to Count Ralphus, Craig, Ovi, Ed, Denny, and Steve, unless someone has to get out early. Is everybody good?
Good.
All right.
Good.
And just to let everybody know that's watching, Denny Barth is our official scorekeeper again tonight.
Got it, bro.
Because I can't count higher than 2. So if we're doing more than 2 albums, we have to bring in Denny, of course.
Okay, well, we're going to start out here tonight. For me, I'm going to go with Flick OfThe Switch as my first topic. This album, my first AC/DC record was For Those About to Rock. So I remember when this one came out, I remember some friends and I were saying, it's just not as good as the last couple of albums. I mean, you had Highway to Hell, Back in Black, For Those About to Rock, just 3 stellar records. This one was not produced by Robert Mutt Lange. I think Mutt Lange definitely helped with the songwriting and arrangements on a lot of those albums that he produced, giving them more hooks, and because they were trying to get radio hits and so forth, So this one was back to the Angus and Malcolm, and I guess their brother or whatever, producing for them for this one. So, but it was a little more raw, back to basics for AC/DC. And it, like, at the time, it didn't do a whole lot for me, but over the years, this seems to be the one that I revisit the most in recent years. I tend to come back to it quite a bit, and there's some really good songs on it. I would say my favorite 3 off of here are going to be, I love the title track, Flick OfThe Switch. I love the opening track, Rising Power. And Guns for Hire is just another great song. But like I said, it's a good album. I do like the album art. I think it's pretty cool. It's just the kind of a pencil drawing, but I don't know, it just stands out. I have a couple of things to show here. This is a 7-inch US single, and this is for Guns for Hire. And here is a UK single for Nervous Shakedown. If you notice, that was the same cover shot that they ended up using on the 74 Jailbreak record. Came out right around the same time. So I would give this record a 7 out of 10. From there, I'm going to go to Accept classic, Balls to the Walls. And this one, this was my introduction to Accept. I actually saw him open for Ozzy on the Bark at the Moon tour, and went out that weekend to buy this record. I was impressed. They blew Ozzy off the stage. It's a great show. And went to the record shop, and they didn't actually have this. So I picked up Restless and Wild, which to me is a better album and is my favorite Accept album. But this one's got some great tunes on it. I mean, of course, the title track is just legendary. And it's got I would say wasn't too crazy about London Leather Boys. A lot of the lyrics too, the lyrics were written by Wolf Hoffman's wife, who was their manager. So a lot of the lyrics are written from a female's perspective. So there a lot of rumors started going around about Accept when you started reading the lyrics to some of their stuff. But I like Head Over Heels. I think that's a cool song. You got to understand that what he's spurting in the dark, head over heels, but I song. I thought it was a cool song. And probably I don't know, I like Fight It Back, because that's like one of the most heavy songs on it. It's pretty fast driving song. I have a single here for Balls to the Walls. This actually autographed by Udo.
Cool.
Over here. And here's a cool bootleg album from a show in Cleveland that they did on that tour. So that's pretty cool as well. From there, I'm going to go with Fastway. Now, when this album came out, I wasn't even really familiar with Motorhead that much. I knew Motorhead, but I didn't even own any Motorhead stuff. I bought this record solely I saw the video on MTV for Say What You Will, which I think the song, that riff is one of the coolest riffs ever. But I remember bringing the album home and I listened to it a couple times. And at the time, I was into Led Zeppelin, but I was like, God, this sounds like a Zeppelin clone or something, And I remember my brother heard it and he was just like, this sucks. This is horrible. This is like a terrible Led Zeppelin clone. And he convinced me that it sucks. So I had a friend at the record store. So I actually I had on tape, brought the tape back and swapped it and got something else, you know. And I actually remember bringing it back and the guy said, "Oh, I don't blame you. This sucks." You know, but it's just kind of funny. As the years progressed, I remember riding around, cruising around with friends. Everybody had this album. It seemed like it was always being played at parties, riding around, doing different things. And then a couple of years later, Fastway did the soundtrack to the horror film Trick or Treat. Yeah. And I ended up getting that, saw the movie, loved it, got the soundtrack to the movie. And one of the songs was Heft. And Heft is actually on this album originally. And that's another Zeppelin sounding song with the heavy drums, almost like the Bonham-like drum style on that song. But I actually went back, picked this one up again on cassette and gave it another spin, liked it, and just kind of kept it. And then when the CD age came in and I started like replacing records and tapes and stuff with CDs, I bought the Fastway debut on CD, and that's when it really hit me, and I just fell in love with it, and I really love it now. If I'm going to pick about 3 songs off this, I definitely got to pick Say What You Will. Like I said, great riff. I love We Become One. That's another great riff. Fast Eddie's got some really heavy riffs on this album. And for a third one, I'm going to go with Heft, because like I said, that was the song that kind of turned me around and got me back on par with this band and digging this record. This is original pressing on vinyl of this one. When you got it, it came with a 7-inch single as well for a song called Far From Home, which is not really a great song. It's just, I mean, Dave, talking about the Zeppelin comparison, Dave King does a lot of like wailing, like Robert Plant wailing and stuff. And no, he doesn't come off as cool as Plant, you know, with it. But I actually got to meet Dave a couple of years ago. He's the front man for Flogging Molly now, just totally reinvented himself. And I worked the show and I got to meet him, and I told him I was a big Fastway fan, and we just, you know, talked a little bit, and he was pretty cool about it. But I think he just kind of wants to put that all behind him. I doubt he would ever have done a reunion. We spoke about Fast Eddie, who had just recently passed away, and he said, "Yeah, man, you know, that guy gave me my start and everything, you know." Here's a picture disc for single for Easy Living, which is one of the singles. And here's a single for We Become One as well. And here is another radio single for Easy Living and Say What You Will.
Wow.
So that one, I'm going to give an 8 out of 10 for that one. All right. Number 1 record for me, of course, Thin Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning. This album changed my life because I was not a Thin Lizzy fan until I got this album. Actually, I really didn't know anything other than The Boys Are Back in Town. And I would go, and I heard Cold Sweat on college radio station. They used to play a lot of metal and stuff. And that would get covered by like Wrathchild and a few other like metal cover bands would come through, and they were playing Cold Sweat and Thunder and Lightning. So this was probably 1987. So Phil had already died. And I went out and picked up Thunder and Lightning on cassette and just fell in love with it immediately. And that just, from then I just started going back and picking up Thin Lizzy records. I remember the second Thin Lizzy record I picked up was Jailbreak. And I was like, wow, this doesn't even sound like the same band. I mean, because this album is definitely, if you're going to say Thin Lizzy ever did a metal album, it's going to be this one. And John Sykes came in from Tigers of Pantang, and he just breathed new life into the band, I think. And it's Thin Lizzy for the 80s. You've got Darren Wharton on keyboards, who had been in the band for a couple of years. But it's so many great tracks on this one. My favorites would definitely be Cold Sweat, and I love Holy War. I think Holy War is a really cool song. And the ballad on here, The Sun Goes Down, is actually another one that I just really love. This is my Japanese pressing. I've got some different pressings of this album. Here's a Cold Sweat 7-inch single from Europe. I have a Cold Sweat 12-inch single. Sorry for the glare on these. And here is a Thunder and Lightning 12-inch, and it's actually, I got it signed by Scott Gorham and John Sykes.
Nice.
And then here is a single for The Sun Goes Down.
Yeah.
Great great guitar. I mean, you got John Sykes on here. He just shines with his guitar solos and stuff on here. It's just he's shredding. But Scott really doesn't take a back seat. Scott makes some really good solos as well. And I think Scott's solo on The Sun Goes Down is one of the best solos he ever recorded. So definitely 10 out of 10 record for me. Thunder and Lightning is my number one pick.
Cool. All right. And I like you've got some collection of records every week. You're pulling out stuff some stuff I've never seen before. And I may be the only person on this that shows stuff as much as you, of course, is Count Ralphus. And that's
Ralph's got all kinds of, yeah.
I mean, that looks like he's got a few records behind him too there. So
yeah.
I do. I don't have all those.
Neither do I. All right, Count Ralphus, you're up.
Yeah, Tony blows me away tonight. I don't come even close, but so yeah, I'm gonna start off with Fastway. I got the CD, and yeah, that Far From Home song is a bonus track on here. I don't got the 7-inch with this, but they that sounds just like Zeppelin. That song really sounded like Zeppelin on that one. I got Another Day I like in Heft and Give It Some Action. The 3 songs that I picked from it. I like it. It's good, but it's like my least favorite thing that Fast Eddie Clarke ever did. And I'd give it like a 6.5. And then for number 2, I'm gonna go with Accept, Balls to the Walls. I say this is probably the worst fucking album cover of all time.
Absolutely.
I cannot stand this fucking album cover. I remember everybody wearing the shirts in school when they toured with Kiss on the Lick It Up tour. Everybody was wearing these shirts. I got it on CD and on cassette.
It's not a great album cover.
It's a horrible album cover.
I think Metallica's trying to get the worst one with the new album, or Lulu.
I take anything over that.
Okay.
But I love this album. The next 3 albums have been part of my life. Well, for a long time. This is, I was a little kid when I got this, so this is really great album to me. Losers and Winners and Guardian of the Night and Fight It Back, and then the title track Balls to the Walls, absolute classic. I love Udo's voice. He has such range. He's underrated vocalist. Especially like on Restless and Wild, some of the sounds that he comes up with. Really awesome album. I give this album a 9. Then going over AC/DC, Flick of the Switch. Can't see any of these. Got it on vinyl for us. I love this Flick of the Switch. It's my favorite Brian Johnson album. It's the rawest Brian Johnson era album. When we did the Brian Johnson episode for AC/DC, I picked it as my number 1. I had recently read Brian Johnson's newest autobiography. It's his second book. This first one was all about like cars and stuff, but this is a really great book. It hasn't been out for too long, but when you're reading it, you almost read it in Brian Johnson's voice. Like you can hear him like speaking as you're reading it, and he's such a lovable character. It's a really great book.
Sure.
It spends most of the book is about him growing up and leading up to Back in Black, but so he doesn't touch too much on after Back in Black. But really awesome book for anybody that likes AC/DC. And number 1, Thin Lizzy. I fucking love this album. Like Tony was saying, but I got into them really late. Like I only knew like the Boys Are Back in Town, like he said, and I had a friend that was really loved them. And he's like, man, you don't like Thin Lizzy? And I'm like, yeah, it's all right, but I really didn't know that they had like this type of album out. And when I first heard this, I'm like, this is that same band that does the Boys Are Back in Town. Like I got addicted to this album. I learned all the words to it. It became one of my favorite drinking albums for the last 20 years or so. And I really wish I would have had this in my life from '83. And I would have had them all on vinyl. I don't even have this on vinyl. I got to get one of my main things that I'm always been looking for is an original copy of that. To see all Tony's fucking awesome 12-inch. That is so cool. I love that album. And yeah, that's it. Number 1, Thin Lizzy.
Cool. Thin Lizzy's on top of the charts tonight. in 2023, time capsule 83, or time machine, whatever the hell we're in. Craig Kaminsky is up on deck, and welcome to the show, Craig.
Thanks again for having me. Good to see everybody again. I guess I'm going to go a little bit against the grain here. So my number 4, I'm going to go with Thin Lizzy. Nothing against the album or anything. I just prefer the other ones a little bit better. I always thought that even it was almost too heavy for them, and hearing some of their older songs, and that, especially when you hear the title track, Thunder and Lightning, because it's like when hearing that, it's like, wow, this is really heavy, compared to some of the other things, and almost I don't know, almost out of character, like they're like trying too hard. I don't know, but favorite songs for me would be Cold Sweat, of course, and This Is the One, and Bad Habits. I like those 3 the most out of those. Good album. I just prefer these other ones, just a little bit more, and that's okay. So my third, I'm going with Balls to the Wall. This was the first Accept album that I had bought also after seeing the video for Balls to the Wall on probably on Much Music, the Canadian MTV. And I like this album too, but I would over the years I've come to prefer Restless and Wild, and I think even Metal Heart I think is probably maybe a little bit of a personally I think it's a little bit of a better album. A lot of mid-paced songs on it, especially when you compare it to Restless and Wild, that has like a lot more faster and more aggressive sounds, and it's a much cleaner production on it as well, but still with some good songs. I mean, the title track is a classic, as Steve had said. No matter where you go, if you go out to a bar somewhere and you hear it, it's such a familiar song. Losers and Winners is a really great rocker too. Probably my favorite song is Turn Me On. I like that riff a lot. It's a good, just a relatively simple sounding song, but it's but I just always like the way that one came across. So that's my number 3. My numbers 1 and 2 could flip flop, given the day. But today I'm going with Fastway for my number 2, and really love this album. Not the first one that I heard. Probably the first thing I had heard from them was from All Fired Up after seeing the video for that, and for Tell Me at the time when that was a new song, which kind of sounds like Say What You Will, very simple,
sure.
riff wise, but really great album. Good playing on everybody, and Fast Eddie just really different when it's like when you hear all the Motorhead stuff, it's like, wow, this is the same guy, I mean, doing songs like this, after, considering the year before he was doing, Devil's Grip, the Iron Fist, and everything. And then it's like he's doing stuff that sounds like, Led Zeppelin in parts. Dave King, I think, was only like 19 years old or something like that when he did this album. Just really professionally done, produced by Eddie Kramer also. My favorite songs, the first 3, Easy Living, Feel Me, Touch Me, Do Anything You Want, and All I Need Is Your Love. Just 3 bangers, like right in a row for me. Just really good, fun, upbeat, like almost like party rock type songs that put you in a good mood, kind of like songs you would play if you had a convertible. I don't, but driving around, cranking your tunes and everything. This version's the Rock Candy revisited version, and this has some bonus songs on it, which are probably the songs that Tony was showing earlier. So it has Crazy Dream and Back in the Game, which I think were B-sides to the singles that Tony showed off earlier. And also the Far From Home song, which honestly is not my favorite. I'm just not a big fan of those slow bluesy type ones. But my favorite, Flick of the Switch, probably my favorite Brian Johnson album as well. So Ralph, you're not alone in your assessment of this. Definitely, and reason I think is because it's just the songs like aren't as played out, I think, as much. I can't even tell you. I mean, maybe you guys would know. The last time they played any of these songs live may have been maybe the Fly on the Wall tour. yeah, or anything. I mean, but really heavy sounding. I like the production on it. It's it's relatively dry sounding and everything, but to be honest, I like this album a lot more than For Those About to Rock, just because it has a lot more oomph, I think, to it. One thing I always thought was strange was that with Rising Power as the lead off song, I always thought that was a little weird that could be like maybe somewhere in the middle. It probably should have started with Guns for Hire or Flick of the Switch. But really and songs like Landslide, like like a heavy like boogie type. I mean, that's got to be one of the heaviest songs that Brian Johnson ever did with them. But favorite songs, I would go with the title track, Flick of the Switch, Guns for Hire, and Bedlam in Belgium is a great song. I always like the way that started. It sounds like they're warming up, and then they just 1, 2, 3, and then the song just like kicks in and everything. And even deep tracks like Badlands, I think just some cool lyrics with that. I'm a pistol packing man with a gun in my hand. I mean, it's good fun rock and roll album. And like Ralph had said, it's like if I'm gonna reach for a Brian Johnson album from AC/DC, I'll probably be grabbing this one because the songs just aren't as played out as some of the hits that most people are familiar with.
There's some footage. I don't know if it's on YouTube. I had it on DVD. It's some like bootleg footage of them rehearsing for that tour, and they're doing a bunch of the stuff. And of course, Simon Wright has come in on drums at that point, and they actually used some of that footage to make the Flick of the Switch music video that they used to show on MTV.
Yeah, you can tell they all have the same clothes on. I think it's like Flick of the Switch, Nervous Shakedown, and Guns for Hire. They didn't change clothes. They just like kept the camera running and just said, screw it, just do them. So yeah.
Great.
Cool. All right. So we're gonna go to our center square next, Ovi. Yeah,
Am I center square?
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm gonna start with Balls to the Wall.
Wow.
I've never been a Accept fan. It's just not my cup of tea. So, I don't say it's bad music. It's just it doesn't rock my boat. But I listened to the album for this assignment, and the songs I really liked is London Leather Boys. I like Guardian of the Night and Losing More Than You Ever Had. I like the best on that album.
Wow.
As for number 3, it's Fastway. Well, I heard Motorhead first, then Fastway. So I know what Fast Eddie can do, and this is Slow Eddie. So for me, this is kind of a crash.
That was the best statement of the night. I have to give it to him.
Slow Eddie.
I like that. Slow Eddie.
Yeah, and Dave King, I got a cassette of him of a project he had back in 1991 called Kathmandu.
Yes. Yes.
And there he sings so good. I mean, his vocals, his fire.
That one was even more Zeppelin sounding, if you ask me.
Yeah, but I got that cassette before I knew a bit of English. It was just because of the artwork. So that's kind of it has been with me for a long time. So I feel like Dave King has been with me since the start. So that's why of the songs of the album, I listened through it and I liked Another Day. I liked Give Me Some Action, and one I liked the best was Heft.
All right.
Because I liked the opening. I kind of liked the whole vibe of the song. It was wasn't that three riff boogie. It was a little more. And then for number 2, I got Thin Lizzy. I've come late into the game with Thin Lizzy too, like more people here, because I heard The Boys Are Back in Town like countless on the radio, but it was Megadeth. I got Megadeth covered Cold Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was such a good riff. So I got to check out, and because I didn't recognize the names under credits, so this is the Megadeth song. So I started to check out, and then I check out more and more of Thin Lizzy. The album in itself, I really like. It has such a 80s vibe. It's kind of big production. It has the winds. It's the perfect 80s album, if you ask me, because it has the flavor of everything. So but it's still as fresh today, I think, as it was back then, probably. I was 2 years old when it came out, so I'm trusting you guys that it's still
Yeah.
it's just as good now as it was back then. As for songs, of course, number 3, Cold Sweats. Number 2, I think that the sun goes down. It's just a magical song. And my favorite song is Someday She's Gonna hit back.
Okay.
I just love the riff. I love the song. I love the guitar solo. It's just, and he sings so fast. It's like, yeah. And for number 1, AC/DC, Flick OfThe Switch. And
Cool.
I have to say, like more people have said here, I mean, I like Back in Black. I'm a Bon Scott fan by default. So, but Back in Black I like. For Those About the Rock has a 1 mega hit song as the title track, and 9 good songs. For me, Flick OfThe Switch has 10 very good songs, but no
Wow.
mega hits. It has no mega hits. It's just have 10 banging good songs that just, they're all so good. And it got the raw sound. It's like, fuck you to the record label, and now we want to do our stuff. I think it really shines through, because For Those About the Rock is sounds like the studio really was far up their ass about the sound and being like out of their really off the AC/DC vibe. I mean, the songs are there, the riffs are there, but the sound is out of character. Like Craig said about Thunder and Lightning, it's like you hear it's them, but it's so far out of left field, or what you call it. As for songs, I like Brain Shake, Landslide, and the favorite song, which is Craig has already mentioned, Badlands.
Okay. Well, we're across the board. It seems like on most of these, everybody's coming up and down and all around. This is going to be a tight one, I think, Denny.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
For sure, for sure.
That's the way it should be.
I think Obi and Craig are throwing a wrench into the
Something.
it's a pretty tight battle right now.
That's all we can say. But stay tuned for the end, because we're not going to tell you who wins unless you're keeping score at home.
Guys, stand together.
All right. Next up is our good friend Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. Evil Ed, they call him over in Norway. And Ed, you got a couple, maybe before you even go, you've got a big show coming up not too long off down in New York City, and tell us about that, then give us your picks.
Yeah, no, yeah, the show you're talking about is Possessed in Utah on May 20th.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn. I've already sold a ton of tickets for it. It's a huge show. Having Possessed is massive, so that's going to be an amazing night. Also, Blood Feast are playing, the Black Mariah, and my friend's band Chaka is doing a debut show that night. So it's going to be a really great night. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've also got 2 other shows I can't announce yet. Booked later this year. Those are going to be really cool too.
Cool.
As far as tonight goes, 4 really great albums. I mean, can't really find too many flaws in any of these records. Great bands, great records, great year in general. As far as my picks, I'm going to mix things up a little bit as well. My number 4 pick is AC/DC, Flick OfThe Switch. Again, great record, but out of the 4 of them, it's got to start somewhere. For me, for Those About to Rock, one of my favorite albums, Highway to Hell, and of course all the Bon Scott stuff is phenomenal. Flick OfThe Switch, great record. I loved it when it first came out. A lot more stripped down, a raw album, production wise, music wise, everything. They just went back to basics, and it sounds great. Absolutely. Some of the best songs: Guns for Hire, Landscape, faster song, faster pace for the band, really killed the track, and of course, the Flick OfThe Switch. Just the classic AC/DC song, great song, and I wish they'd play it out live too. They really should.
Yep.
Next band, Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning. Last album from the band, phenomenal band, and like everyone's been saying, a much different sound and flavor for the band on this final record. A lot thrashier, a lot more metal, a lot heavier. Great record, just phenomenal record. I love old Thin Lizzy as well, but this is definitely a different band and just as great in my opinion. Opening track, Thunder Lightning, just sets the pace for the album, just blistering. Just great song. Kicks it off, high energy, fast paced, great guitar work, of course. Favorite songs, Cold Sweat, great hard rock song, classic song, Heart Attack, Killer Rhythm, and of course Thunder and Lightning. Next album, Fastway. Fastway's debut album. Anything with Fast Eddie Clarke is going to be great. I mean, I love that slow Eddie comment. That was funny. It's funny Pete Wade didn't actually play on the album, but he's still a part of the band, so got to give him credit. But great record, just phenomenal record. Just killer hard rock, metal, and just fantastic musicianship with the guys involved. I love the vocals. I think he's a fantastic vocalist on this, and just really has a raw sound to his voice. Best songs, Easy Living, just a killer track, classic. Another Day, I love the acoustic beginning and just kicks in. And Heft, really killer song. Heft is probably one of my favorites. And I gotta say What You Will is just their classic. Their absolute classic song. Last for me, top album, except Balls to the Wall. Except are they are my favorite traditional metal band. Loved every album they've done from the first album to the last album. Some of the albums in the 2000s, you know, in between period weren't so great. This is one of their classics, absolutely. First album I got was Restless and Wild. I remember buying that, seeing that album cover, and just like, this has to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Balls to the Walls came out. I was already loved the band. The album cover is by far one of the worst album covers of all time. Definitely, as a 15-year-old boy, was wondering, about what the relationship was with Udo and this, fascination he seemed to have. But just maybe they write more songs about sex than Motley Crue at this point, which is hysterical. But they're just phenomenal album. When I first got the album, I remember loving Balls to the Wall and London Leather Boys, my favorite songs. As I listened to the album more and more and it progressed, I realized those were my least favorite songs on the album. Great songs, but just every other song is just phenomenal in my opinion. Hard to pick favorites, but Head Over Heels, always one of my favorites. Just that throbbing bass line and just that killer riff. Losing More Than You Ever Had, just fantastic opening riff, and just the song is just the great vocal lines, and just I love the way the song flows. Turn Me On, another great song. I know I'm picking more than three here. And the final song, Winter Dreams. I love Accept's slower side, the melodic side, the more ballady songs. They've done so many of them. Neon Nights, The King, from the last album, The Undertaker, and this one also. They kill it when they do slow songs, and this is one of my favorites. I would give this an absolute 10. The other albums, I pretty much give a 7 because they're all great albums. Not the best albums from the bands, but great albums. This album's a 10 plus in my eyes.
Yeah,
cool.
It's like you said, the sexual innuendos in those lyrics from Accept. I mean, all the music was written by the band, but the manager is listed as Deefy. We would see all songs by Accept and Deefy, and she was writing the lyrics from, I guess, a woman's perspective in a way. So it's no telling, some of the stuff that they did to here, because she could speak English, I guess, better than those guys at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Udo was singing those lyrics. He probably had no idea what he was thinking about.
Yes, he didn't know what spurting in the dark meant,
They probably just focused on singing it correctly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Sees that, says, "Was ist los?"
All righty. As things are getting mixed up even further, we're going to go to the scorekeeper, and he's going to give us our picks, and then we'll wrap back at the very end after me, and he will give us the final countdown. We're not talking about your
Thank God.
All right, Denny, and then we got Mr. Levin, and then me, and we'll go back to Denny and get the winner of this 83 battle, which seems to be all over the place right now.
All right. Okay, my number least favorite is Accept, Balls to the Walls.
Wow.
I think that I don't know, like it's almost like I back then I first heard about Accept through like Breaker, like those album, and we had a band in Montreal called Hell's Dagger. They used to cover like early Accept, and they used to cover Son of a Bitch. And then after that they covered like Restless and Wild and Fast as a Shark. So you know, like I like my Accept a little harder, I guess.
Okay.
I find the Balls to the Wall album did not age super well. Especially the more like known songs like Balls to the Wall itself, like London Leather Boys and Love's Child. Like I'm a bit like Ed. I love like Winter Dreams, and I love those more like kind of like more like ballad influence Accept sometimes. But this album, I I do have like a metal playlist. And Love Child is on there as well as like Balls to the Walls, and every time it comes on, I skip it. So like I don't know. It's and I never seen Accept live.
Wow.
I haven't, like, I know they have like a lot of albums like since then, and they still active and stuff. It's never been a go-to band for me. And maybe I'm in that age group, just a little older, that I already knew about them before that album came out, and then I switched to like crazy shit music. Like but yeah, I wouldn't mind go revisit. Like I know they have an album called Metal Heart, I think that's like super popular. I never heard it. Never heard it.
Wow.
It's a great.
So I'll promise you guys I'll go and take the time to listen, because I respect their work and what they've done, but like I it's just never been a go. I do find like sometimes like Udo's voice in some like choruses and things like that do remind me a little bit of Blackie Lawless from Wasp, just in like certain like note selection. I caught myself one time thinking like, hey, this is Accept, and it was Wasp, and one time it was Wasp. But it's just not my wheelhouse. Like I'm not a mid-pace metal guy. Like I either like it's like you gotta be like 172,000 beats per minute, or I'll listen to like Tom Jones, or like can just be weird and listen to Yes and that stuff. So, but anyway, yes, like, I've never seen the band live. I don't think so, even though I have like memories of Restless and Wild. I have memories of them coming to Montreal, and I might have been at that concert, but if I was, I remember nothing about it. So I must have been in the condition that but I like I said, this is just not for me. But my favorite song, I'm pretty sure it's Winter Dreams. I really like that song. Number 2, less good, will be Fastway. And I think Fastway for me, as soon as I heard Easy Livin' is the first song I ever heard from them, I was expecting like a little more like Motorhead, like because like I'm like, all right, so like Motorhead's cheating on Fast Eddie with fucking Robert, like with Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy, so he must be pissed. It's gonna be like the angriest freaking, and I'm like, what is this? But I liked Easy Living right away. I once I got into it, it was fine for me. And this is an album that you can listen now that has aged better, I find. I like Heft. I love Say What You Will. like Another Day, like it's good, it's good, like Led Zeppelin influence music, easy to listen to. I don't visit it often, I don't listen to it often, but like Easy Living is still, I used to somehow like I always relate to these two songs, like Joe Perry Project, East Coast, West Coast, and Fastway, Easy Living. For me, I always have like mix on a mixtape or playlist now. Like they're always close to each other. I don't know why. Maybe the letter E. I don't know. Whatever. But I do like Fastway. And I thought it was great for Fast Eddie to adapt his guitar playing style to something completely different. It is slower Motorhead, like when you really look, but it's not a bad album, and I do like it. So next for me will be AC/DC Flick of the Switch. In my mind, and like that's just in my mind, it's the last great AC/DC record. Like
It's true.
I find that anything after that will have 2-3 good songs, 1-2-3, like tons of filler. And I have the luxury or luck, I guess, like the guitar tech that I'm working with right now. It works with Aggression and Devin Townsend and a lot of other guys. Used to be Malcolm Young's tech.
Wow.
Ooh.
And he has, I'm going to his house this weekend, but he does have, like, Malcolm gave him like some of it. He has 2 of his guitar on the wall, and it's like
Wow.
the stories that, like, like these guys in AC/DC were like crazy, they were like almost like not even realizing that they were partying and rocking so much. Like it was just normal. It was just a way of life. Like like we're in AC/DC, we have jeans, t-shirt, we play rock and roll. That's what we do. But it was like he told me that Malcolm said that Flick of the Switch was one of his favorite AC/DC record. And I don't know if it was ever on record anywhere, but he said Malcolm really liked this album, and I find it's a good balance between good hooks, good guitar playing, good vocals. It's the album with Brian Johnson that sounds the most like it's the one that sounds the most like a Bon Scott era AC/DC as well. So it's really got like a lot of it's just great music. And the funny thing is, I was supposed to go see AC/DC. I think one of my freaking older cousin, they said like, hey, this band's playing in Buffalo, New York. You want to come with us? I'm like, and I was young. I was like 13 years old, I guess. And I was like, oh, it's too far. I'll wait for them to come in Montreal. And of course, Bon Scott, never came to mind. So AC/DC is one of the rare bands I've never seen in my life.
Wow.
I have never seen an AC/DC concert in my entire life, ever.
Crazy.
And I Power Rage and all those albums are way up in my my top whatever list. But this album, so when it came out, I didn't totally disregard it. Because for those about to rock, I love the title track. Some of the rest didn't really hook me, and after that, I was kind of like starting to listen to other things. But later, when I got older, more mature, and I went and started to listen to Flick, I'm like, oh my god, this is like some serious, like, dirty fucking AC/DC. Like let's get fucked up and just rock. And there's a ton, like you guys mentioned most of them, but like, Landslide, the Rising Power, there's so much good. It's really good AC/DC. I think it's an underrated album, and it's an album that a lot of AC/DC fans don't know, and they should, if they listen to this show, that they should go and check it out.
For sure.
And my number one, like it took me like less than a second to realize it would be my number one. It's the Thin Lizzy Thunder and Lightning. Like I am a John Sykes freak fan, whatever you want to call me. Like I like him since Tigers of Pantang. I learned playing a lot of guitar solos through John Sykes, like Spellbound, album, and I was shocked that such a institution like Tin Lizzy and Phil Lynott would go and pick a guy from a band from a new wave of British heavy metal that, to me, there was no, like, they were not talking, which was not true, because after I realized the Sweet Savage toured with Lizzy, and there is a lot of more connection into all these bands, and I was such a big fan of like the Chinatown and Renegade album, so I was anticipating Thunder and Lightning when it came out. Like I was like, all right, so you get Thin Lizzy, I love the band, I'm already like sold. Then you got my boy John Sykes going into like Thin Lizzy, so what's gonna happen? So then I were driving after a party with friends, and then on the radio Cold Sweat came on, and I mean, it's like Thin Lizzy on steroids, or I don't know how to say it. Like it's the guitar solo, and so then like back then, now suddenly like, oh, okay, whoa, Cold Sweat. Now it starts to there was like almost like they were talking, okay, Randy Rhoads, and but now, okay, John Sykes, and now he was starting to be in the conversation with Vivian Campbell and all those guys, right? So yeah, like I thought that the production, like, just to be completely honest, was a bit like it's almost like they were far from the microphone. Like it's very like, it sounds a lot of reverb. It's not as like, say, crisp as like Renegade or Chinatown. So I thought that might have taken away some of the heaviness of what Thunder, like, see, like some of you are saying like it's too heavy for Thin Lizzy, and in my mind I'm thinking they didn't make it heavy enough. But yeah, like so I thought it was a lot of reverb, a lot of like very like 80s sound, very like they could have made it a bit tighter. Holy War, what an amazing song. And the sound goes down. I like Heart Attack, Bad Habits. This is the one, all of them. Like it's not my favorite like Thin Lizzy record, but it's, to me, it was a great transition for John Sykes to go from like, you go from Tigers of Pantang, you go Thin Lizzy, then you end up with Whitesnake, and of course, like they broke big with those songs. But it's my number one pick tonight.
Cool.
But like Thin Lizzy in most battle would kind of like almost win anyway, so it's not
okay.
That's it. That's my selection for tonight.
Thank you. It's always great to hear your point of view and your stories. Now I think we ought to hold on to our seats, because Steve Levin has not been nice lately to certain bands. And I'm just wondering who he's going to throw under that proverbial bus tonight.
So funny to say that.
Here he goes.
So anyway,
the ripping machine.
Here, nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. So yeah, here comes that asshole Levin again. Here he comes. Yeah, that's me, but I'm fine being that person, and it's nothing personal. I really love all these groups, and I just think it's so funny because some of the stuff that I'm saying is more akin to what Ralph would have been saying when he was much younger, or wasn't really listening to these bands and kind of didn't get it. And now I'm the one that are kind of slamming these bands. So, all right, hold on to your seats. Here we go. Okay, so my number 4 choice is Slaughterhead with Slow Eddie Clark.
Slaughterhead.
Slaughterhead with Slow Eddie Clark and Fastway. What can I say? It just doesn't do it for me. And I went back, and when I go back and listen to these albums, I try to have open mind and try to really get into it. And now that being said, I'm not in my classic. Summer is my classic rock phase. That's when I like listen to this stuff more often. Right now, I'm still in my slam metal deathcore phase. So yeah, like none of this stuff stands a chance right now. But anyway, so yeah, Fastway. Wow, man, I feel like his voice is it got a lot of pop for being like people were saying what a great singer is. He's so much like Robert Plant. I personally feel like it's kind of weak. I don't like his voice that much. I don't feel like he really projects himself that well. Maybe it was the production of the album. I'm not really sure. Fast Eddie, his lead work, I always gonna love his lead work. I just love the way he plays. He doesn't play games. He cuts right to the chase. Chase is better than the catch, so to speak. But I mean, he really does. A lot of times when I'm overthinking a lead, I will try to think like, what would Fast Eddie do here? And go back to some of that more basic bluesy stuff. But he does it with a little bit more flair. So it's not quite just like your basic blues leads. And I'm going to always love Fast Eddie. And I really hate giving this a 2 out of 10. But, you know, what can I say? I mean, the bottom line is that Motorhead that same year put out a great album that's heavy as hell. And I think it really gives you an idea when people will want to slam Lemmy for, you know, oh, Lemmy wanted to go in a different direction. He was hanging out with Wendy O. Williams. He was doing stuff with Tammy Wynette and all this kind of crazy stuff. But look who put out the weak album. It wasn't Lemmy. It was Fast Eddie with this radio friendly. And I like to say that it's kind of like maybe he was shooting for more like a UFO direction, like maybe something along those lines, because that was another band that like a lot of my friends really love. And dude, I mean, I will never say anything about Schenker because he's a god, and I love any Michael Schenker lead. He's amazing. But UFO was another band that just wasn't really my cup of tea. I was always very much like Denny. When Denny says he was always looking for the heavy stuff, that was me. I mean, that continues today. I'm always looking for the heaviest stuff. There is actual stone music too, because some stuff that they say is music is so heavy that it's, you know, it's unlistenable. But so yeah, 2 out of 10 with Fastway. Fast Eddie, rest easy, buddy. I'm so sorry to do that to you, but yeah, you know, what can I say? You know, my third choice would be Balls to the Wall. Another one, just like Denny said, he really covered it. I'm a little bit older. I'm actually the same age as Denny, so I was familiar with Breaker. Breaker will always be my favorite Accept album. Restless and Wild was a great album, but Breaker's just so aggressive. And Denny, I was wondering, you said you used to do Son of a Bitch. When you crossed over and played in America, did you have to do Born to Be Whipped?
Yeah.
It was a band from Montreal that used to play it, but yeah, I used to be able to cross in America and not have to show any paper, just fucking go.
Now it's like, oh God! As we know, Denny's nightmare coming to the States to play for us.
Full cavity skirt, all that stuff. But anyway, in case anybody doesn't know, when the Accept album Breaker was released in Germany, the song "Son of a Bitch" was deemed too risque for America, so they changed it to "Born to Be Whipped," which makes a lot of sense.
Kiss my arm.
Yeah,
he says.
That's right.
Was it Kiss My Arm? Born to Be Whipped, Kiss My Arm?
Yep.
Wow.
But what was really cool and informative was finding out that the lyrics were written by a female who was their manager at the time, because I know Steve and I, when we used to play the album in the store, we would look at each other and be like, okay, Udo's really getting some of his fantasies out in these lyrics here, isn't he? Because, you know, every song is basically about sex, and some of the titles and just some of the stuff is just a little, you know. So it's actually good to hear that, because I love Udo, and you know, this just wasn't my album. It was a little bit too light. It was a little bit more commercial, so to speak. Yeah, I love the song "Balls to the Wall." That's always going to be more of a sentimental type of thing, because just the video, and I always talk about that, staying up late, watching Headbangers Ball, you know, just because that's what we did back then. You know, I mean, what else were you going to do Saturday night from midnight to 3 in the morning? You know, and that's what we did. So that song will always have, you know, a special place in my heart, but definitely not my Accept. That's somebody else's Accept, so to speak. Okay, moving right along would be the AC/DC Flick of the Switch. Now, this album, when Steve said we were going to do this, I said, oh, that's a great album. And when I went back to it, I still really like it. It's really raw. It really is the most Bon Scott album that Brian Johnson ever did. It's a lot like Power Age, I think. It has that kind of power to it, that kind of kick. I'm still going to always be a Bon Scott type of person. I mean, my first AC/DC was the live album, If You Want Blood, and hearing versions of Problem Child and Whole Lotta Rosie and shit like that on that album. Man, that was like mind blowing. I always will say that Ace Frehley really got me interested in playing guitar, made me feel like I want to play guitar. But Angus Young is the guy that made me say, I need to learn how to play, you know, and that's when I really started getting serious about playing, when I was probably about 15 years old. So the AC/DC, I'm going to give a 4. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Not my favorite AC/DC, but still really good. For whatever reason, I'm going to always love Brian Johnson's first Back in Black. I know a lot of those albums were actually written for Bon, and he didn't get to perform on them. And the funny thing is, it's just like Denny, and this is no lie. So when I was 13 years old, they played in Towson, Maryland at the Towson Center, which was a college. And I begged my Aunt Pat, my cousin Mike, to take me. And for whatever reason, my Aunt Pat, she would always take us to concerts. And she took me to see Kiss back in '79, which was my first like big arena show. And actually, I mean, my first concert, so to speak, anyway. But we couldn't get to that show for some reason. She had to work. And of course, I was super bummed out. That was the Highway to Hell tour. And of course, you know, next year, that was it. You know, Bon was gone. So such a shame there, you know. But I have seen AC/DC, and Brian's a great fill-in. I don't think they really could have done any better than getting him. And one thing that I do want to mention, because his name was brought up, was Simon Wright. And Simon Wright was not on the album, but came in after. It was Phil Rudd's last album with him for a while. But Simon Wright was a drummer who played in a couple of new wave British heavy metal bands, Titan for one, and one of my favorite bands, if nobody's ever heard of them, A2Z. They put out a live album called Witch of Berkeley, and man, that's a good album. Tons of double bass. Like this album's like 1981, 82, and the double bass on it's like crazy. It's just a really, really good album. One of my favorite new wave British heavy metal albums, and that was really like my era. So if you like that era, do yourself a favor and check that out. And that leaves number 1, Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy, I'm gonna say, has never been my favorite group. They're a group that I go back and listen to, and Phil's voice is just wow. I mean, what are you gonna say? The guy sings with such emotion. You can really feel what he's singing about, and I really love that about Phil. And this being probably the heaviest Thin Lizzy album, it is actually probably my favorite Thin Lizzy album. I would give this one a 7.5, 8 out of 10. Really good album. As Denny's already said, John Sykes, man, Tigers of Pantang, what a great band. Actually had a little bit, I wouldn't say an argument, but I had a conversation with a friend recently about that. And he's like, oh, you know, whole era, like new British heavy metal, Tigers of Pantang should have been one of the bands that really came out of that. I'm like, no. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, first of all, that name alone, you are not going to make it with the name Tigers of Pantang, okay? I mean, I don't know exactly where they got it from, but no popular band is going to be called Tigers of Pantang, okay? Sorry about that. They had John Deverall was their second vocalist. He had a great, great voice, very similar to, like, I would say, like a David Coverdale or something. But John is an out-of-the-box, amazing player. He was definitely, I don't want to say that he was better than the rest of the band, but he was a different caliber musician. Whether he was trained, I've never really done any research on him, which is funny because, like Denny, he's one of my favorite players. But what a great player. And I mean, the stuff he did with Tigers was amazing. And when he realized that Tigers wasn't going to go to the level, he got into Thin Lizzy. And he did a phenomenal job. And you can really hear his influence because that's why they became heavier. And I kind of feel like they were going in that direction anyway, because it's funny because when I went back to listen to this, I was looking for Angel of Death. And that song's actually on the prior album, Renegade. And that's actually my favorite Thin Lizzy song. So for whatever reason, I always thought John Sykes played on that, and I guess he doesn't. So, you know, my bad. But I guess you learn something every day. So I can be asshole Levin in that way too. You know what I mean?
Hey, you gotta.
Yeah, Thin Lizzy, great album. It's my number 1 pick. Mostly, if anything, just for John Sykes. And the real shame of it is that Fast Eddie, out of all the guitarists on this whole thing, including Angus, Fast Eddie is probably my boy. So to rate him as the lowest pick is a real shame. And I just really wish that his whatever, I wish that he would have been able to write some more music later on that would have really shown what he could do, you know. So but anyway, those are my picks, and I thank you, and Asshole Levin signing off.
You know what?
I gotta say, like how he was bringing up the name Tigers of Pantang. I always felt the same way about Thin Lizzy. I thought the name was stupid, and it made me not like want to like look into him. And that's happened to me a lot of times throughout the years. If they got a dumb name, like even like Alice in Chains and stuff, like certain names, like I hear it and I go, fuck, that sounds stupid, you know. But I couldn't stand that name Thin Lizzy. I didn't know what it was about, and I still think it's a dumb name. You love the band, but and you start to just forget about it. But that was the same kind of thing for me with Thin Lizzy. I'm surprised that they became such a great band, you know.
Butch Jones is never inviting you anywheres after that.
If I've got my way, I could go back in time. I would have gotten the vocalist for Crocus to sing for AC/DC.
Oh.
Yeah, that would have been a good choice. He was very much like them.
Supposedly
he was asked. I think he was under consideration, but that turned him down. I think.
Another one who would have been great, and is actually from the same country, is Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo.
Sure.
I met a guy once that used to work with them back in the Bon Scott days, and he said that one of the first people that it came to mind was they wanted Noddy Holder from Slade, but they knew that it was quite a bit of age difference there.
Right.
Huh. That could be good too. Yeah.
That was one of the considered names that came up first, supposedly.
Wow.
Anyhow, Mr. Levin, I think that you developing into quite the character on the show, and you do remind me of a bit of Chris Allo version for us. Because Chris Allo holds no punches on Monday nights on Hudson Valley Squares.
Well, that's the way I feel like it should be. I mean,
it should be, yeah.
The thing is in with Chris too, is that we love music and we respect everybody's opinion. There's in no way are we gatekeepers. I'm not going to look down my nose because you like an album that I don't like or anything.
Sure.
I love to hear people's opinions, and sometimes I'll listen to something and somebody will tell me something I don't know. I'll go back and listen to them and go, man, they were right. That's great, you know. So all about learning and growing and listening to new stuff, and sometimes not listening to new stuff.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn to my picks, and I'm right on the same wavelength with Mr. Levin right now. I've been listening to a lot of heavy shit lately. It's not slam metal, but I just saw Crisian. I just saw Vader. I saw Torturous Inception the other night. We had a couple death metal underground, like death metal things. I saw Revocation last night. I saw all these bands. So going back to some of these records, it was a little tough because I was more in the mood for listening to heavy stuff right now. But my last place is Fastway. I never really cared for this record when it came out. I thought it was a little disappointing. I think I liked it better back then. So I'm going to completely disagree with, but I like it's a good episode because we're all across the board. And man, I had it on this morning because I was giving it another listen while I was in the living room when my wife was in the dining room doing some book work. And she said, "What the heck are you listening to?" And she did not like it either. And Linda likes the heavier stuff too, but she likes heavier than that. And she's like, "I really don't like this. Could you take it off?" And I said, "Well, I'm giving another listen. It's one of the songs on the albums we were listening to tonight." And I say We Become One, Say What You Will, of course, is their classic, and you hear that a lot. And Another Day is all right, but it's really not my cup of tea. It's not my style. The rest, I'm moving on. AC/DC is going to be my next in line. The title track, Flick OfThe Switch, I agree with everyone. I just love that song, and I think it's one of the best songs. It's one of my songs. When I think of AC/DC, not Bon Scott, but Brian Johnson era, that song is a song I always want to hear. I want to listen to Flick OfThe Switch. I like The House Is on Fire. I like Rising Power. It's definitely not my favorite AC/DC album. I agree with whoever mentioned it earlier. I think it was it was kind of like how some people are relating to Accept on this episode. To me, it's an album that went downhill from the albums, of course, the Bon Scott era to Back in Black, and I do like For Those About to Rock better. So that's my number 3. My number 2 is Thin Lizzy. I love that record though. I love the song Heart Attack. I love Holy War, Cold Sweat, and Thunder and Lightning. So I'm cheating with 4, but yeah, this is the heaviest Thin Lizzy album. It's definitely their metal album that year, and it's a shame that we lost Phil and it was their final album a couple of years later. This was their final album, and we lost him a couple of years later. And there's no going against Udo Dirk Schneider with me. I agree with all of you. This is not. There were 2 better Accept albums before this. I agree with that 100%. But as I listened to this yesterday, after listening, I drove to the city yesterday and I listened to all 3 of these albums that afternoon as I was driving to the city, and one on the way home. When I put in Accept, to me, it was much heavier than everything else, even though it's not the best album. I love the Poppy Love Child. I love Losers and Winners. And you can't go against Balls to the Wall. It's a metal classic. Yeah, it's a little played out. It's like Breaking the Law and everything else. But to me, I'm going to Accept number 1. I don't know if Denny might self-combust, because Accept's been last. It's been first. Fastway's been first. Fastway's been last. And now, I guess with a drum roll, we are going to find out who is it. Maybe it's a tie. Maybe our viewers are going to have to decide the winner on this one.
There is a tie with 2 albums actually, but so in last, I'll go in 3rd position because we have we have 2 number 2.
All right.
3rd position, we have Fastway with Slow Eddie Clark.
Slaughterhead.
Floaterhead.
At 17 points. Tony Dio, Craig, and Ed are the ones who gave the most points for this album.
Okay.
Number 2, we have a tie. We have Accept, Balls to the Walls, and AC/DC Flick of the Switch.
Okay.
Again, for these 2 albums, Craig, OV, Ed, and Mr. Stephen Keeler kind of give the points, a lot of points, but they're both tied at 19 points, and the winner by 6 points is Thin Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning.
Wow.
Pushed by Tony Dio, The Count, Ralphus, myself, Mr. Mechanical Menace himself, Mr. Levin, and the influence of Mr. Schenker on John Sykes.
John Cavaluzzi couldn't be here tonight, but he said his pick was Thin Lizzy as well.
So there you go.
We're not going to count as in the final standings because he wasn't on the show, and Hansi told me Accept all the way on. So that was an Accept. But Hansi told me Accept, but of course he didn't give us the other 3.
I'm going to unfriend him on Facebook right now.
You're going to have to unfriend me. I picked him too.
Well,
that's okay. You're allowed. He's not.
Oh, okay. You'll beat him up when you see him.
When you speak of Accept, Balls to the Walls, that song, that title track is definitely one of the most classic songs in heavy metal. I go to the M3 Rock Fest pretty regularly each year, and that's more of a glam rock bands and stuff. But they have a few heavy acts, and they put Accept on with Mark from TT Quick fronting them now, and
of course
they played, and I think there's a lot of people are like, Accept, they were wondering why they were on the bill. Well, I know when they played Balls to the Walls that night, I looked around and it's like 18,000 people were all just headbanging. I mean, it's like whether they knew who Accept was or not, they knew that song from Headbangers Ball, so regularly.
It's a human rights song.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, it was just it was cool to see everybody was enjoying it.
And I'm a big Udo fan. I love Udo Dirk Schneider. I loved everything he's done. I think he's one of the legendary vocalists in metal. And I was lucky enough. I was lucky enough to interview him on the channel during the pandemic, and that I'll probably link it to this video actually. So next week I'm not. But go ahead, Obi.
When I went to the record store when I was younger, the first Accept album I saw was Russian Roulette. I thought that was a pretty cool cover on Russian Roulette.
Mm-hmm.
Udo's a very busy man still. He's always doing albums. He's not in Accept anymore. A lot of people are like,
he has more members of Accept in his solo band now than Accept.
That's
Yeah.
that's a good point, and that is true now. It's like Accept has how many Accept members now?
Just
One.
Hoffman.
Yeah.
Udo
And-
has Peter Baltz and also Stephen Kaufman, who was the drummer in Accept, plays guitar in Udo.
And
I guess he still plays with him. I know he left for a little while, but I think he's back. I'm not sure.
And before the pandemic here in the United States, I think it went worldwide. That he did the Dirk Snyder performs Accept. I saw that tour twice, and that was really
great.
good.
I
Yeah.
saw that too. It was great.
And he claimed that he was never going to play Accept stuff live again, but I think he's kind of lightened his stance on that. So
What everybody wants.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for spending time with us tonight on this Wednesday evening as we film this April 12th, 2023. Ed's on vacation. Where are you? You're going to some kind of festival this weekend.
Yeah, the Metal Threat.
Where's
Metal
that?
Chicago, leaving tomorrow.
Okay.
Nice.
Messiah playing, Dayton. It's gonna be a great weekend.
My friend from Witch's Hammer are gonna be there. The drummer plays hockey with me. Go say hi to those guys. Witch's Hammer.
Witch's Hammer, yeah, they're a good band. I'll be checking them out, that's for sure.
Yeah, they all live like 2 blocks from here, like very close.
You gotta whack that guy's ankle and say, "This is from Denny."
Who else has any concert plans coming up this week? You guys seen any shows?
Don't forget the Carolina Chainsaw Massacre Fest.
That's coming up. I think we're gonna do an episode on that. We gotta get. I think John is very busy because I'll be seeing. I'm going this weekend to the Decibel Beer Festival, music metal festival. Are you gonna be there, Craig?
No, I'm going to Vegas next week actually.
Okay.
So,
Oh, wow, cool.
yeah,
So I'm gonna be in Philadelphia. I'm gonna be in Philadelphia Saturday to support Incantation and see my buddies in All Out War and
Cool.
I Hate God are playing, and Suicidal Tendencies are the headliner. So I'm going down there. Ralph, you're seeing the tour I saw last night, I think Friday night, right?
Yep, I'm going up to Albany, Crypta, Skeleton Remains, and Morbid Angel.
Revocation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skeleton
Yeah,
Remains is not on the tour anymore. It's Virital.
Oh, okay.
I saw it's off the. Anybody else? Before we
I'm
wrap?
going to the Spectrum in Oslo, in our capital. I'm going to see Star Wars Empire Strikes Back with a live orchestra.
Oh,
wow.
We watched the
that's
movie with
crazy.
a live orchestra.
cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to Vader and Christian tonight. They're playing here in Vancouver.
Oh, you are.
Awesome, dude.
And then next week it's Carcass
I saw that last night.
coming to Vancouver, so
Carcass.
we're gonna go see that. And of course, my drummer Ryan, my son-in-law, is out in Germany right now. He just flew yesterday. He's playing drums for Heaton.
Yeah.
And they're on tour with Overkill.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Exorder. So
That's pretty cool.
That's
Glory in the Vatican, man.
we practiced once because we're playing at the Carolina Massacre Fest. So we practiced one time, and then like the next time I would see him would be in Greensboro.
Wow.
So it'll be fun. Still waiting for the paperwork to cross the border, but it's looking better than it's ever been. So I don't know. I think
Hopefully.
it's gonna happen.
I think it's going to happen.
Going on, bro. I'm
Thinking
holding
positive. It's going to happen.
It's anticipation.
You better clear out your guest bedroom then, Tony, because we're coming, bro.
You got it, man. Come on.
Lots of room.
And Steve, what were you saying? Do you got something lined up you're coming out this weekend?
The next show that I'm going to isn't until the beginning of May. It's the Devourment, Extermination, Dismemberment Tour, which looks really sick and slammy for all you slam fans. There's probably none of you, but I'm looking forward. But if Denny gets into the country, then yeah, we're gonna go down to North Carolina because we're gonna hang with my bro. We're not gonna miss that. There's so many friends down there. Tony's gonna be down there. Ed's gonna be down there. John and Yo-Yo are gonna be down there. Robin's gonna be there.
Yeah, Gruesome's on it too, right?
Yeah, so there's just no way to miss that. So yeah, if that happens, then Extermination Dismemberment. Sorry guys, I love you, but yeah.
Wait a minute, you're forgetting a very important show that you're skipping over because you're performing at it.
Oh, I'll be there for that one. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, April 29th, you're going to be here in Middletown with Sick Bay and Abuse Ritual and Servant of Sorrow and Violent by Design. So don't forget that one. You got to show up for that one before you go to the other show.
Yeah, we're practicing like 3 nights a week. So yeah,
Good.
Nice.
I also have tickets. I also have tickets for Misfits and Fear, but that's not till June.
Yeah. All right. Anyhow, well, we'll see you next time on the Rock Fantasy Files YouTube channel, and stay heavy. And we'll see you next week. And please, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Put your favorites out of the albums today in the comments, and we'll see you next time.